Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Oregon Fan Show, the podcast where we talk with Duck fans and college football experts about the things that make us want to shout. Our guest in our third hour is Erik Skopil, football and women's basketball beat writer for Duck Territory and 247 Sports. Erik, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah, we've reached. It's actually there's no media today, so it's a day off. So you've caught me at the right day. I'm unwinding, if you will.
It is incredibly gracious of you to join us on your day off. I'm a little embarrassed.
Don't worry about it. Plus, trust me, I've got more fun things to do later. So you're not interrupting my social time by any means. It's like
What do you like? What do you like to do on your day off?
Well, they all vary. Honestly, I will be spending the afternoon with my girlfriend and her daughter, who just won Camper of the Week at the YMCA in Eugene, and celebrating her second victory this summer of Camper of the Week. I think we might go get a little ice cream. Yeah, and then later, there's a couple things on TV I'll probably put on. But I mean, my life's kind of probably similar to a lot of listeners in terms of some of the things I like to do. Nothing too far out there.
That's awesome. I got to ask you, I see you and Matt doing segments on CBS Sports along with Bud Elliott and Tom Fornelli. Do you ever kind of just have to pinch yourself a little?
Yeah, no, that part's really cool. And professionally, I'm doing this for a long time. There are so many of those kind of like benchmarks that you reach that you probably don't. I'm happy you asked that question because I don't enough appreciate just kind of like where we've reached, what we're doing, the audience that we get to speak to on a regular basis, and yeah, it's really cool. And the CBS sports stuff that we get to do every now and then, and which will pick up more in the fall, is really fun. Even though at times I disagree with Tom Fornelli, especially when he's picking Oregon to lose to USC, which was bizarre to me. But I was on that segment, did not co-sign the pick.
Did he do that? Did he actually say that?
Oh yeah. They brought me on, and the Oregon's going 10-2 losing to USC, which again I didn't get a chance to rebut that, but that was where he was at. Tom's a good guy. All these people are great people. I've had the pleasure of getting to know them. Don't always agree with their football opinions, but that's the way this works, and I know a lot of people don't agree with mine. So we'll move on.
All right. Well, moving on, the Odds and Audibles podcast that you do with Matt Preem. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
You're nailing it. Yep.
All right, good. You're up to 4.6 thousand subscribers. You've done 597 videos, and you average about 2,000 views a day. Mm-hmm. What do you think has made you so successful?
Well, I hadn't. Thank you for letting me know how many of these we've done. It kind of blows my mind. I think we've done more just on the audio side. When I joined up with Matt at Duck Territory, this is my 10th year on this beat, which is kind of crazy. We talked about, I'd always wanted to do a podcast. I think he'd always wanted to do a podcast, and we just kind of started to do it. And I'll be honest, like there wasn't really any infrastructure at 24/7. There wasn't a ton of backing necessarily. They weren't like against the idea, but it wasn't something that they were promoting us to do or pushing us to do one way or the other. And it's become one of my favorite things to do. I think it's the most natural way to interact with fans. And that's why, for me, like my favorite segment is the mailbags we do, where we ask the fans to kind of create the show, give us 4 to 6 topics. We'll go from there. And I really enjoy that part where we get to be kind of immersive and interactive with the fans and kind of talk about what they're interested in. Because at the end of the day, Matt and I are both from Eugene. We've both been around these programs for a long, long time. We have a lot of passion for it. And if we weren't in the seats we are right now, we'd probably be the ones asking the questions on those kind of shows. So it's surreal, it's fun, and I hope people listen to this and maybe haven't checked our show out. We'll go give it a look.
Oh, everyone should. I've got it down in the crawl how they reach you, and
you see it, yeah.
And I super enjoy your content. I especially enjoy reading you. It's strange because even at my level, what I enjoy most is the engagement with the fans. Mm-hmm. And what I like about it is that it combines everything I like to do. You have to write it, and then you have to present it, and then you get to engage and interact. So it makes it a lot of fun.
Well, when we kind of started to do all these different things, our pitch sort of to the audience or to our I guess the people, our superiors, I guess, was we are essentially trying to take the place of like local newspapers. Not that we're trying to put them out of business, but we're trying to do some of the written content. We're trying to do what like a radio show does with our podcasts. And now that it's a simulcast, we're kind of doing it a bit as a broadcasting arm too. So we try to incorporate all of it. There's stuff that we're still trying to get used to. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I understood the way to connect on social media with the younger fan base. I think that's something we're focused on trying to improve upon. But there's so many different hats in this profession. I'm 37. I went to Gonzaga, over 15 years ago. And when I was coming up, it was just like figure out how to master the one thing. And so I was focused on the writing, and I would probably have been surprised, over more than a decade ago, if I would have told myself that maybe I'd be more well known for my voice on radio or my voice on podcasts or videos and things like that. So, you just kind of have to roll with the industry. And at this point, if you can't do all of them, you're kind of, you're operating with a hand behind your back pretty much.
You've got to get exposure for content. And if you just write a story and post a link to it, it gets X amount of views. But if there's some video and some other pieces to it, it gets infinitely more.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And the podcast has been a good avenue for us to reach new fans who are curious about the team, and we hopefully share some information that resonates with them. And then they're able to go check out our written content over on the website, which frankly is what pays us. We don't necessarily make anything off the podcast. We make our salaries based upon our written work. So it all works together, but certainly the best outcome for us is if people come in and check out our stuff over at the website.
Well, I'm confident that I'm speaking for a lot of Oregon fans when I say we really appreciate your work, and I appreciate how thorough and professional you are.
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate it. We try, and even recording this a day after things didn't go our way, but we try to stay level headed and do the best we can with the information we have.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I want to ask you this. You're from Eugene, Matt's from Eugene.
Yeah.
As a reporter, you don't really root for the Ducks. You have to stay in that journalist mode. You'd be thrown out of the press box if you did any different. Is that hard sometimes?
So, yeah, it's very difficult. And I think the thing that, I mean, just to be a person for a second, I don't know if listeners necessarily care or not, but being a sports writer has made being a sports fan, not specifically for Oregon, but just in general, really strange because I so rarely get to go to the arena and just not feel like I'm working. You know what I mean? Like I so rarely. My girlfriend and her daughter and I went to some Oregon softball games, which were fun. I don't cover that team. I was able to just kind of sit in the nosebleeds and just watch and, interact with some of the Oregon players who are up there or the women's basketball players that made it out for a game. And we tried to go up to some Blazers games, tried to go up to some Portland Fire, the WNBA games, and some Mariner games, Clos's baseball team. Those are just such unique experiences for me because over the course of a year, I attend probably, 40 or 50 sporting events. And I'd say 90% of them, I'm there with a journalistic background, right? Like that's what I'm there to do. I'm there to do that. I'm there to do some reporting. I'm there to focus on the game. It's just I don't know. It's a weird thing to kind of maybe articulate, but at a certain point, you do kind of just miss going to Autzen Stadium like I did when I was growing up and sitting in, the section we always sat in with my dad and some friends and enjoying the game. It's just it's a very different thing. And you're right. If anybody cheers in the press box, you get in a lot of trouble. And, I've seen it and I've had to kind of go, oh, these people must be new because if you were to do that regularly at the Autzen press box, look for the exit.
Yeah, it's a very professional environment. I slipped up once when Charles Nielsen did something amazing and kind of ducking my head to stay out of the way.
Yeah. And every now and then I think, you don't cheer, but I think you can react. So, and that doesn't mean, but I think you can go, ooh, or wow, man, what a play. Like, I think that feels on table. I think it's when you're applauding or going, oh yeah, I go Ducks. I think that sort of crosses boundaries, but we are able to at least express ourselves to some degree, just maybe not in the fashion that some of us would like.
We're going to see a lot of interesting and explosive plays this year, it'll be hard not to at least react on that level.
Yeah, no, this is going to be, I don't know all the directions we're going to go from here, but I mean, I'm again, as somebody who's 37 years old and who's watched games since I was 4 or 5, I feel like every year now I'm saying this is the best Oregon team I've seen, and it just feels like that continues this year.
Dan has stacked some classes. I think his last 4 have all ranked in the 247 Sports composite top 5.
Yeah, no, and that's, I mean, you asked about pinch yourself moments about CBS Sports. I mean, just a pinch yourself moment for myself as somebody, again, who's been following this program for so long, as a teenager and a college student, and then as a professional. I didn't think there was going to be a time Oregon would be regularly beating USC's butt on the recruiting trail. I still remember the days where it was like, okay, Oregon's got a commitment from a guy, and if USC and Pete Carroll really want him, they're gonna go over there and talk to this kid from LA, and it's not going to go Oregon's way. And to be on the other side now, where it feels like USC has to pull out all the stops to really recruit on the same level as Oregon. And credit to Lincoln Riley, they've done a lot better these last couple of years. Last year being obviously an exceptional example of that, but yeah, it's shifted, it's changed. And the fact that you can look up at this roster and go like, here's guys that Oregon beat Georgia and Alabama for. Here are guys that Penn State was, kids from Pennsylvania who Oregon, went and took from kind of that backyard. And in the Midwest, like Trey McNutt was a legacy recruit from Ohio. His dad went there and he goes to Oregon. Like all these kind of stories, you just go, it is unique and weird and different and obviously really exciting. And it's the backbone for why this program is, I think, in a good spot right now.
What do you like most about covering Oregon football?
Before practice access was revoked, that would have been my answer. I used to have a really fun time going out there with a notepad and just writing down everything I saw that was interesting. And obviously some of those things were things that people in charge didn't really appreciate being talked about publicly. And that's why access has changed and whatnot. And so I missed that part, and it makes my job a lot easier. We don't probably run into the mistake that was made on Wednesday here with Jordan Davison. If we had practice access to confirm that he'd been practicing, that's not an excuse and whatnot. But that being absent from a professional perspective is a bummer, and a personal perspective is a bummer. I used to just love going out and being like, this is how the new guys look, like at least how they look in practice, who's working where, who has the movement skills that stand out, which freshmen physically look different. So that was my favorite part. And I think at this point now, it's probably Sunday, just rewatching the game. The game on Saturday is so chaotic. So much is going on. I mean, you're asked, from us, we're live tweeting, we're in a game thread, we're writing stories kind of all concurrently as the game's going on. You don't really get the chance to really like be in the moment. Just that Sunday where it takes about 5 hours. I slow everything down. I get to rewatch everything. I write a long piece about it. That's probably, I'd say the Sunday after a game is probably at this point my favorite part of what I get to do.
You can digest it a little more, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, like on a Saturday, there's so much going on. There's so much on your mind. And at times I'm missing plays because I'm making sure that something else I was working on is updated. And it's just, it's a very different, you don't get to be in the moment, I think is probably the best way to put it, the way you do the following day when it's just all distractions put aside and let's just crunch tape.
Fans just kind of think that a reporter sits down and writes a story when the game ends, but it's not like that, is it?
No, it's not at all. And and they asked us to do a lot of things. That's not a complaint. That's just the reality of what we're I'm managing the game thread, which means I'm live tweeting the game and then taking those comments, posting them in the game thread. I'm updating like a play log of what's happening in the game thread. I'm usually pre-writing some sort of post-game story, or at least getting a sense of that. I know Matt does his 10 takeaways, which he's writing simultaneously as the game goes, So you're doing all that while also trying to track, it looks like number 4 just left because of an injury. Let's get the binoculars out. Okay, he's going to the tent. Which leg is he favoring? What's going on there? Okay, well, we need to report about that. Getting text from a friend asking if I saw this, or maybe texting a friend who's at home on, watching the telecast going like, hey, what does the replay show? We haven't got a good angle here. There's a lot more to it. And game days are fun. I'm not taking anything away from it. I mean, we get there about 2.5 hours early. We probably leave about 3 hours after the game, but it's a big investment, and it's one that again I wouldn't trade because so the job is essentially to know what the team looks like, and Saturday is what informs that. But gosh, it would be fun just for a couple Saturdays to have be maybe in a different position where I could really just kind of sit back and enjoy it. And I tried to make that happen, Dale, actually not intentionally, but I was going to go to the Peach Bowl, got sick, was able to just watch it at home, and boy, was that not the enjoyable experience I thought it might be when I set all of it up.
All right. Yeah, that was the direct opposite of an enjoyable experience.
And from the jump, it was like, okay, cool. That's the end of the season. Let's start writing about that.
It was so hard, Erik, because, in one way, it was just kind of a replay of the energy of the year before at the Rose Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I was at that one in Pasadena, and that was surreal to be surrounded by everybody else. I think I felt pretty good just watching that people by myself in my condo, going like, okay, yeah, I don't need to share this with anybody else's misery. I can just experience this organically on my own. So yeah, that was memorable in the wrong way.
If we can, Erik, let's talk, you touched on it, but let's talk a moment about the injury story in the general sense. Without pointing fingers at anybody or ripping at anybody or questioning somebody's ethics, it's got to be hard when you're fighting for clicks in a competitive market, fighting for news and access, especially injury news, which is so tightly controlled. You guys are in a tough spot as a profession.
Yeah, then the only direction to point the finger is back at myself. I mean, of just maybe we jumped the gun. I mean, clearly we did, right? Like, I mean, with what's been, with what I've learned since the reporting, with what Rashad Samples said yesterday about what Jordan Davison was able to do in practice, he's not out for 6 to 8 weeks, which was what the initial report was, which is what I heard from a reliable source. And I'm still kind of processing yesterday. It was a very strange day. I didn't go into the day think I would be breaking that news. I heard from a couple of people, felt good about it. I saw Zach run his report. He's very reliable. Felt like that. Okay, that's a good sign. I'd heard it independently. We went with it, and pretty quickly I heard from somebody who would know that hey, that's not an accurate representation of what's going on. And then you have to go through the difficult thing of figuring out how to correct that information. And I think it makes you look at your own practices and how you're handling things differently. I think in retrospect, probably did maybe, I don't know. I don't know if I even really believe that. I think we had good intel. I felt like I trusted who I was hearing it from, and I think that was the hard part, was kind of going like, okay, maybe the lesson is to reassess who we're trusting and why. And to the point I made earlier, like this is, and the point you just made, this isn't easy as it used to be in terms of just access. It's different. People don't want to talk. Like you try to get a hold of certain people and they say, well, I know the answer to that, but you shouldn't, because the person at the top doesn't want you to have that information. And that's difficult. It's this job in covering Oregon football is so different than the other sports I currently cover, being women's basketball, or in the past, other roles I've had where, usually you got the coach's number, you give him a call, he tells you what's going on, and you can kind of discuss like, hey, what's the path here? What do you want reported? How do you want it reported? It's going to be reported by somebody. Let me be the one to handle that. And then you make the move. But it's kind of in lockstep with them. And this is a situation where, unfortunately, that's not the relationship, I guess, that anybody has with the staff currently. That's not the way they want to operate. That's not a shot at them. That's just the realities of kind of how they're, doing business and carrying themselves. And that makes things more difficult than us. And we have to rely on sources that seem solid, that feel solid, you feel good about. And, but they aren't the absolute best, is I guess what I can admit, because in a perfect world, you'd be able to have a dialogue with the person at the very top. And that's not something that takes place. And that's not a shot at all. It's just the reality of what the relationships look like right now. So
coaches are so hyper vigilant now about controlling information. I once had Mario Cristobal text me, and I'm, in the minor leagues of what you do. But he texted me at 4 a.m.
Oh, wow.
because I'd retweeted a clip of Juwan Johnson running a fade route in practice. Now, every team in America runs fade routes. It's not a scoop. It's not a threat to the secrecy, but that's how vigilant he was. 4 a.m, man.
Mm-hmm.
Please remove that. And I did, because I didn't want to piss him off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can't say that would be unique to my life either. Not pointing at who would be sending me said messages, but that does happen. And sometimes, and assuming it's not, like, assuming the reason, like if it's something kind of superfluous, like you're discussing, that like I don't really care if I take down a retweet of a fade route, that's fine. Then it's an easy, like, okay, cool, yeah, that's what we need to do. I'll take it down. If sometimes it's not, and you have to have a bit more of a dialogue, but at times you do kind of go like, what is really the threat here, of this information being out there and being public, and why is it a problem that I'm pushing this or something? I don't know. But yeah, it's the world you live in, and I understand the secrecy. I understand, Dan has said it, multiple times, of just kind of like, if you're in the media, he'd rather have you kind of working with him rather than against him. And there are certain things that frankly we want to report, that we think the fans probably are curious about, that maybe work against them. And that's why there's opposition to it, which I understand, and you just have to deal with. I also think there's a lot of the fans that would love to know certain information that isn't readily available to them, that theirs can kind of control on. So it's our job to do our best to provide the most that we can, even though at times that runs in opposition with the program. And I know that doesn't, I'm sure there are people listening who will be bothered by that point of view, but I did go to journalism school and did a little newspaper work before this, and our job is not always to be, even though we're Duck territory, which suggests like we're pretty pro Oregon. Both of us are Eugene grads that grew up, in the the nosebleeds of Autzen, or I can't speak to where Matt was. That was where I was. So there's a level of passion, but at the same time, you kind of have to there is a level of due diligence and integrity you have to have in our job, and unfortunately, at times that runs counter to what I guess is expected or desired from those kind of holding the secrets.
Well, I appreciate your candor about that topic. Let's move on a little bit to the 2026 Ducks. On the Autzen Audibles podcast, you and Matt talked about the questions at linebacker. The Ducks sent Bryce Betcher and his 136 tackles to the Baltimore Colts. That production's got to come from somewhere. What is your and Matt's confidence level that Brian Michalowski can solve that problem?
I think it's relatively high that they'll get. I'm trying to think of how I want to approach that. I think I have a lot of confidence that they'll be playing competent football at that position. They've got veterans, like the two guys who are projecting to start, Jerry Mixon, Devin Jackson, both seniors, 4th and 5th years in the program, respectively. Like, these guys have been around BMAC, they've been around Coach Lanning, they've been around this staff, these people for a long time. They understand what's at stake, and frankly, like at times last year, like I thought both Jerry and Devin had really nice moments. It just wasn't always consistent in there, and their kind of strengths and weaknesses, I think, are kind of inverted. Like, they're not quite identical. So at times, certain games, one of them looked maybe better than the other, and whatnot. But I have a lot of confidence in Michalowski's ability to develop these younger guys, because I think we've seen that. I think we've seen Bryce Betcher go from a walk-on to, like you said, to an NFL draft pick. We've seen Jeffrey Bossa move positions and become an NFL player. Jamal Hill, I think he worked with for one of his first season. Maybe it wasn't as a full-time position coach, getting years mixed up. I know he was on staff early. Like, I have confidence in that development of getting these players ready. What we haven't really seen, Dale, and I don't know if the fans always agree or disagree, is I don't know if it's been. I don't think linebacker play has been the strength of this defense quite like I thought it might be when Dan came over from Georgia. Because you think about those Georgia defenses that they had, whether it be Nolan Smith or some of these other guys they had elite players at that second level, and there've been really good ones here, but I haven't quite seen it take that next step. And I guess I would say I'm a little bit weary to proclaim, I think, anyone on this roster this year with the makeup of this team is going to take that next step to being like an elite guy. We'll see. Devin Jackson has the physical traits. I really like Gavin Nixon. That's a player I'm really high on. Super disappointing that Braden Platt's going to miss. It sounds like most of fall camp or all of fall camp and then extended time after. That's a tough one to swallow, a pill to swallow. So I guess that's a complicated way of saying like I don't doubt that they're going to play good enough defense here at that level. I kind of question or wonder aloud, like, will we see it take that next step up to take what Chris Hampton said in spring from good to great? I'm wondering if that's what we see happen at linebacker right now. I think that's a concern I personally have.
It's really tough. Linebacker is a position where it's really tough for a freshman to contribute right away. But I was really intrigued by Tristan Phillips' film. I think that he has a bright future.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of where I hesitated there to say this year, because I do think there are pieces on this team. Like Phillips is somebody I'm really intrigued by, probably for the same reasons you are. Again, Gavin Nix, I really liked what he showed last year, and certainly as a high school player. Like I think the sky's the limit there, and like he might prove to be, in 2 or 3 years, like one of the better. Maybe it isn't even 2 or 3 years. Maybe it's this year and then into 27 when he takes over as a full-time starter, like one of the better backers, maybe the best backer Oregon's had under Coach Lanning. I think that's possibly in him. And so credit to Mike Olowski for bringing those guys in. Maybe I'm overly concerned by where they're at right now in terms of just like playing at a national championship level at that level. And frankly, today's game, like there's this place that you probably can get away with playing not at a 10 out of 10 clip or however you want to define it. It might be there, especially when you have the edge rushers Oregon has. You have some of the guys in the interior, and certainly we know at the second level, the secondary and the back level, gosh, they have so many elite athletes and players that I think are really going to take a big step.
There's a reason why the NFL drafted 17 edge rushers in the first 2 rounds.
Isn't that crazy?
And half of the rest of what they drafted were defensive backs.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So those are and Oregon has loaded up at those positions. And I think inside linebacker is not a position where they've done a poor job recruiting by any means. I just don't know if it quite meets what we're talking about with some of these other positions on defense.
In your guise as the all-seeing, all-knowing Skopil Thomas, you predicted a 12-0 regular season for the Ducks. Do you stand by that prediction?
Yeah, I'm not gonna back down from it. Although if you are familiar with my hit rate on my Skopil Thomas columns during the season, I'm probably wrong. No, I mean, when you go through that exercise every year, which I've done, and I'll pat myself in the back. I've had the right record for 4 years running, so I've done a pretty. Last year, I got, I picked one loss. I thought it'd be Penn State, ended up being Indiana. The year before, I called 12-0. The year before that, I think I nailed that season pretty much perfect actually, because I had the Washington loss up there, and but when you're going through the exercise, to me, it's more like what do I think the most likely outcome for every game is? Not like I'm not looking at it in the total. Like, do I think 11-1 is a likely or probable outcome this season? Yeah, I do. Do I also think if you're just going through it week by week and looking at every single matchup, that Oregon should be the better team in all of those, with the exception of Ohio State, which is to me kind of an even one? Yeah, I think that's true too. Like Oregon's going to be favored in 11 out of 12 games. Like barring significant injury or a catastrophic start to a season where they just completely implode, and I don't even know why that would happen. Like this team is going to be favored against everybody save Ohio State. And I think I look at the Ohio State game, and that was maybe the one that got people slipped up a little bit. I trust Oregon's defense more than I trust Ohio State's defense, just because of the personnel they've returned, right? And both teams are breaking in new offensive coordinators. They might have growing pains, but both offenses are so loaded at quarterback and skill talent that, like, I just think I put those as kind of put an equal next to those, and I say Oregon's defense is a little better. If you want to tell me that Ohio State playing at home in November is going to be enough of an advantage to flip it their way, wouldn't argue with it. And that's that one of the games is like, it's a coin flip to me. The rest, I think Oregon will be favored and I think should win most of them pretty comfortably.
Okay, we got 45 seconds left on the clock. Okay. What's your gut feeling? Is this the year the Ducks shed the Zero Natties tag and end the curse of the Maldonado?
The curse of the Maldonado. I like that.
You can use it. I'd be honored if you did.
Maybe I'll have to take that from you. I think there's a lot of reason to believe it might be. I really do think that Oregon's roster is as good as it's ever been, and playing in the Big Ten and with the schedule they have is going to set them up to be in an advantageous position in postseason. And then it's just a matter of like, can they get over that hurdle? And they haven't been able to, right? Like, and we've seen what's happened recently. It's been discouraging. It's been confusing. It's been disappointing. I still don't know if I have all the answers for why it happened back-to-back years in similar fashion, but like, there's no reason they can't. And I think it's proofs in the pudding with the coaches poll, right? Like number 2 in the preseason poll. Like, there's not a team in the country right now that I think you could look at and say they are definitively better than Oregon. So why not? Why can't they win the championship this year? And all of it just comes down to how these guys execute in January.
Erik Skopil, 247 Sports, Duck Terry, Odds and Audibles. It has been a delight to speak with you, and thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah. All right. Anytime, Dale. I'm not sure how frequently you have guests on, but maybe we'll do a catch up sometime during the season.
I have guests on 3 times a day, and you can come back tomorrow if you want. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Dale. Bye.